Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Daily Revelations. We are in Esther 9, and it's Tuesday, so second day in. And the study talked about who was almost feared and honored throughout the Persian kingdom. And I hope you figured out who that was. But what got me thinking was, who wrote this book? This could have been the book of Mordecai, because it talks so much about how Mordecai was exalted. Well, I just gave away the answer, sorry. But this book was written by Esther, and Esther chose to take her eyes off herself and to focus the story on instead how God used her life to influence others to do things. It influenced everyone from Haman and his family, not in a good way, Mordecai, the king, the palace servants. There are so many people that she mentions that are mentioned in this book. And, this was a recording of hers by probably the palace scribes of all these things that went on. And of course, just the Jewish nation in a whole, since this is one of their holy books. But what about our lives? And that's what got me thinking about what does God give us influence over? And some questions I wrote to myself is, and what impact am I having on those people? And am I building up the level of trust that Esther built up while she was in that position? Remember, just even at the beginning, we learned that the guard that was put over the maidens just was influenced greatly by her character. And she continued to live that way to a point where everyone that was around her looked to her, and yet she gave them the freedom to be who they were in that place. And she earned the respect of the king. And what I read today specifically just made that pop out to me, because remember at the beginning, the king said to Esther when all of this came about, he said, what is your request? I will give you up to half of the kingdom. He put limits on what he said she could request. But if you look in verse 11, the king said to Esther, and all this has been done. And then he said, now, what is your petition? It shall be granted to you. And what is your further request? It shall also be done. No restrictions at all. And I thought about that, is that when we ask God things in prayer and we don't know him, God puts restrictions on him, because he's only going to grant what is within his will to happen. He wants us to be part of that. And so that's why he says, come to me. You haven't asked yet. Come on, ask. But if we don't know his will, if we are not close to him, we can make lots of requests, but they're going to be restricted. When you get to know God, when you dive deep into prayer and you can feel the Spirit moving and you know exactly how to pray, that is when the restrictions are removed, because no longer do we want to pray for things that are outside God's will. We know that those lead to bad places, especially when you make a lot of mistakes and God has to correct you to get you back. You become more careful in what you ask for. And that made me think about that, is that I don't want to request anything, but in order for me to request what's in God's will and not what's in here, I have to empty out some spaces. And so I need to die to myself, and I need to allow God to fill those spaces with his will, so that when I pray, all that I'm requesting is his. And I wrote this: God removes the restrictions when we ask according to his will. All is then ours to request. The restrictions are removed. We have shown God over and over again that we want to do what he wants to do. Now, if we are in that relationship and we ask for something crazy, he's not going to fulfill it because it's not in his will. Okay. So that is still a restriction. But if you live within his will, you almost don't see it as a restriction anymore. It's a freedom. It's a freedom to live a better life. And so anyways, but we must clean out. And I wrote our ideas, our desires, and our ways that we want to manipulate things in life. And that's when we can live in His will. So all is ours. Isn't that amazing? And God has taken the restrictions off. Yeah, we live in His will and we live in that freedom. We aren't chained to sin and death, and we aren't chained to the ways of this world that says we have to do all these things and check all these boxes in order to get a better life. We just live God following, and I even wrote this in my notes. I'm a child of God, and I can not only come into His presence, but I can stay there. And that is my choice. So hope you're having an awesome day and enjoying Esther. I will see you again tomorrow. Thank you for joining me on Daily Revelations, and we'll see what God has to share tomorrow. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.